Good morning, you guys. How's everyone doing? Up? Is that good? Sideways? Is that good? We sounding good? Okay, great. We're good to go. You guys doing good this morning? Girls, may I just say, I'm beyond proud of you. You're doing all women in America well by your efforts. Men, you're making very good effort, and I'm really proud of you for not giving up. But the end is inevitable, so I just have to say that. But no, for real, it's so fun to do this little friendly competition with you guys. I love it. And we will see who the winner is. I think we're still pretty close in points. We'll see. But if I have not met you yet, hello, my name is Maddie. I am the girls director here at NineTen, and I love NineTen, you guys. This has been like the most special place, and it's so near and dear to my heart. So anytime I get to come up here and share with you what God is teaching me, I just get so excited. So before we open up and dive in and continue in our series, let's pray and invite the Lord into this time. So God, we thank you so much for who you are and for who that makes us, God. We thank you for this place that we can just learn more about you. I pray that this morning is probably not new information for these students, but just reminders of truth, God. I thank you that you're a God that never gets tired of reminding us of things that we already know to be true or that you have already declared as true. But you delight in relationship with us and getting to remind us of things. So pray that this morning we just learn more what it looks like to be like you and to walk with you as we go through life. If there's anything right now that's distracting us or begging for our attention, God, I pray that we would just be able to give you the next 20, 30 minutes and just be open to what you have to say to us, God. We invite you in. We know that you are good, and we know that what you have to say is true and is good for our souls. So we want to know you more. Would we just do that in this time? We love you so much. In your name, amen. Okay, I feel like, you guys, I've been in NineTen now, if you're including the years when I was a student, almost like, I think it's been like 9 years. Oh my gosh, does that make me old? I think so. But I have been in NineTen for a long time, and this kind of feels like my safe space. Is that cool? Can this be a safe place for me to share something that's a little vulnerable?
Yes.
Yes. I feel it from the girls, but guys, come on. Can I be safe here? Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry that for the competition. I know during the month of February, sometimes the guys really hate me, but I hope we can look past that. But I feel like this is a safe space, so I'm going to share with you an experience that I went through. So I grew up in a military family. Any other military kids in the crowd? No? Kind of? Yes? All right, cool. So my family grew up moving all over the place. We lived in North Carolina for a little bit. We lived here, and we also lived in a place called Okinawa, Japan. It's a little island off of Japan. And we lived there. I was actually born there, fun fact. And then we moved back there when I was in like 5th grade. So most of my middle school years were spent with a bunch of other military kids on a very small island. And guys, can I be honest? Sometimes us military kids are so far removed from, like, we were literally on the other side of the world, and this was before like social media. So we were just a little bit behind on certain things. So I was weird in middle school, okay? Still am, but I was like really weird in middle school. So I came back here in 8th grade, did not know anyone. Went to Whitewater after like 2 weeks of living here. Got to know people a little bit more during that. But I was going to Roosevelt Middle School. Anyone? Yeah, is right. So imagine me, sheltered little Maddie, who is very weird, going to Roosevelt Middle School, which is like, I mean, you guys all went oof, like we know the reputation Roosevelt has. So I was like, okay, I can do this. 8th grade. Everybody here has known each other basically since birth, so it was very obvious that I was the new kid there. And classes are going like pretty good so far, but then the most daunting part of the day comes, and I have to go to lunch with all the other 8th graders, and I know nobody. So the first few days, I kind of kept to myself because I was a little nervous to like put myself out there and ask to sit with someone. I'm like kind of talking about it with my mom, and she's like, Maddie, you should just find somebody else who's sitting alone and just sit with them. I was like, Mom, that is a great idea, thank you. So it's like a few days into school at this point, I build up the courage all day. I'm like, when lunchtime comes, I'm going to find someone and I'm going to sit with them because I'm tired of sitting alone. So I go up to this girl who's also alone, and I put my little lunchbox down, and I'm like, hi, my name is Maddie. Can I sit with you? And no joke, you guys, she gives me the nastiest side eye ever. She's like, looks at me, packs her stuff up, and walks away. Yeah, brutal. Middle schoolers are ruthless. So I was like, okay. I like sat there for a second, the tears filling my eyes. I go to the bathroom because I don't want anyone to see me cry. And that's where I stayed for the rest of that lunch period. And then I just ate lunch alone for a while. And eventually I meet friends. Everything worked out. I was okay. I ended up meeting one of my best friends that same year. But I say all of this kind of embarrassing story because I think there was something happening there that a lot of us experience. Maybe it wasn't you being the new kid at school, but how many of us have felt alone before? Anyone has felt alone? And I'm right there with you. And it is like the worst feeling ever. When you like want so badly to have friends and community, but you find yourself in this like isolation and this loneliness. And the reason that we feel that like disjointing, like this isn't as it should be, is because it's not how it should be. We were not designed to be people that do life alone. Today we're going to be talking about friendship and God's design for it, why it's important, and how do we do it. We looked at dating, and we've talked about our relationship with God. And when we looked at dating, the Bible doesn't have much to say about dating, right? Because it's something that wasn't a practice during biblical times. But the Bible has a lot to say about friendship because it's the way that God designed us. We look back to the garden, Genesis 3. The first problem that comes up for humanity is not a sin issue, right? It's a solitude problem. We see it's not sin but solitude that God looks at and he says, that's not good. He created Adam in all of perfection. But Adam, in his lonely state, God looks at that and he said, ooh, that's not good. He shouldn't be alone. He's not necessarily saying that man needs woman in order to exist. It's this idea of community, that God in himself, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, 3 in 1, which is crazy to comprehend, but him in perfect community, from his community created us. We were made from community and for community. That we weren't designed to do this life by ourselves. We're designed to do it with God first, but then also with the people around us. So if you've experienced that like lonely feeling, that the reason it feels so awful and that isn't how it should be is because it's not. And God's been telling us from the beginning of time, but guess what, guys? Science also backs this, and hundreds of research studies show us today that the effects of loneliness are pretty crazy. And I am a little bit of a psychology nerd. I studied psychology and human development in college. And so if you're a nerd like me and you want to nerd out for a moment, just join me. If not, you still might think it's interesting, so please listen. But this is what science says, you guys, that having friendships as teens, so the years that you guys are in right now, benefits us in this many ways. It's a list. Get ready. This is all the benefits that we will have if we learn how to do friendship well now. You have a higher functioning immune system, better self-esteem, lower rates of anxiety, a happier, more optimistic outlook on life, longer life expectancy, so you'll live longer, stronger emotional regulation, and improved cognitive functioning, which is just like the way that your brain works, and more empathy and feelings of trust towards others. And then another study said that teens with close friendships in your high school years will actually even have better mental health as you become a young adult. And then even further than that, teens that have good friendships in high school actually become better parents later. That there's a direct link between having good friendships in high school and your parenting skills as adults. So sometimes in high school we just find ourselves in these friend groups and we're just like, these are the people that I am with. But my challenge and push to you as we learn about friendship is this is something that's going to really affect you the rest of your life. That the way that we choose to do friendships right here and right now through our high school years will go on to affect your mental health as a young adult, who you become as a husband or a wife or a single person in your adult life. That if you become a parent one day, the way that you're learning to do friendship now is going to directly affect how you are a parent later. Now, this is really an important thing, and the fact that both science and scripture can point to the same thing and say, like, we were designed to do life together and not to do it alone. God already knew this about us before science proved it. And he gave us a whole book with instruction on how do we do this. Because friendships are hard, right, guys? They're hard and they are messy, and we can be dealing with hurt and pain that comes in them. And Jesus knows that that's our experience, so he goes first, just like we've been talking about. Everything Jesus calls us to, he's already done. He had friends. He walked this life with people closely. And so he teaches us how to do it. In the New Testament, so the books where Jesus has come down, has been on earth, the word one another appears over 100 times, and 59 of those times are specific commands. That part of being Christians is loving one another. Part of being a follower of Jesus includes doing life alongside each other. That we can't walk with Jesus truly as like followers of him unless we're also doing community with each other. It's part of our design. And the good thing is God shows us how to do this. So this morning, we're going to keep it simple. I said in my prayer that we might not learn anything new or groundbreaking today, so I'm so sorry. But you will be reminded of things that you might already know and you just need a little refresher on. That sometimes the most basic things we kind of forget and we just need to come back to. So if anything, maybe this morning just serves as am I doing friendships the way that God designed them? And if not, maybe he put something on your heart that needs to be adjusted in our life. But before we dive into those three things, I want to root us in the truth that our security first comes from Jesus, you guys. Hayden talked about it with dating, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but the fact that we as humans are just insecure people. Now we'll look to other people to get our security. We'll look to other people to inform who we are. If we're feeling lonely, our first response usually is, let me text a friend, or let me get on social media, because it fixes that like alone feeling. But we on our own are very insecure. And if at any point we are looking to another person, whether that's dating, whether that's friendship, to fill a hole in us that only God can fill, we're going to come up feeling empty and disappointed and let down every time. So if you're coming in today and you're like me when I was in high school and I thought that I was doing good in life if my friends were happy with me, or if I had all these friends and I was popular, then I would like feel really good about myself. But if that's our goal in friendship, then we're going to come up feeling really let down. That our security needs to come first in the fact that it sounds so cheesy, I am so aware, but that Jesus is our friend first. That he shows us how we can be good friends to each other by having a relationship with him. That if we have a friendship with him, friendships kind of will happen a little bit more naturally with the people around us. So the first way that we can cultivate or grow these healthy friendships in our life is by seeking to serve, not to be served. Seek to serve, not to be served. How many of you guys have been disappointed by a friend before? I think all of us have probably been disappointed by a friend before. And as I was kind of thinking about where does that disappointment feeling come from? Like, why do I find myself getting disappointed or hurt by my friends sometimes? I feel like the Lord kind of convicted me of something a little bit. And that is, I think sometimes in my life, which maybe you find yourself here too, I approach friendship as, how can this friend serve me, rather than how can I serve my friend? I come to my friendships looking to be served rather than to serve, and I come to my friends asking them to fill something that they weren't meant to. And sometimes there's disappointment that is so valid, so I don't want to say that if you ever feel disappointed in a friendship, you're wrong. But I think sometimes we put too much pressure or expectation on a friendship, and it leaves us feeling really disappointed, and it's because we're giving it a place that it wasn't meant to have in our life. That we go to our friendships asking for things that they weren't meant to fill. And this is a little thing that my mom told me, and I'm sure she didn't get it. She probably got it from somewhere else, and you may have heard it before. But it's just this concept of being the friend that you want to have. That if in your life you're like disappointed and discouraged because maybe you look around and you don't really like the friendships you have, or maybe you go to a high school where there aren't a ton of kids that believe the same thing as you and you feel alone in that. Or maybe it's friends in this room that you're disappointed by, or you have expectations that you don't feel like your friend is fitting. That it takes us going first to be the friend that we want to have. If you want a friend that like texts you and reaches out and asks questions and follows up and goes, oh, I know you were talking about this thing that happened with your family, and then a few weeks later checks back in and says like, hey, how's that going? If you want a friend that does special things for your birthday or just goes out of their way to make you feel seen, are you that friend to somebody else? It starts with us. And the reason I can say that is because this is how Jesus did friendship. That we see in John 13. Before Jesus goes to the cross, he shares a meal with his friends. And during this meal time, everybody comes in the room, and it's a tradition that they would wash your feet before you go sit down and have dinner. And you guys probably know this story. But Jesus, all of his friends were waiting to be served. And Jesus, the most worthy of our service and the most worthy of having his feet washed, his love goes first to serve his friends. And when they all are expecting somebody else to come wash their feet, Jesus comes down on his knees and washes the gunk out of his friends' toes. I love my friends. I don't think I would do that for them. But we see creator of the world, the one who knit them together, the one who walks with us in all of his perfection. He's the one that gets down and does that for his friends. And there's moments in my life that I just expect to be served by the people around me. And I lose sight of the God that actually tells us that we need to serve those around us. He is the ultimate example of friendship, and his love goes first. In 1 John 4:19, it says, we can love because he first loved us. That if we go back to, my friendships aren't coming from me trying to gain security, but I already know my security in Christ. I already know that I'm loved by Christ. Then I'm not looking to the people around me to fill me and love me. I can serve out of an abundance and out of an overflow because I know I'm already loved. So I can love those around me because God first loved me. And this is how we see Jesus walk his life. If you read the Gospels, just notice that. Notice how Jesus is constantly serving the people around him. And his love always goes first. We have to remember, you guys, that friendship sometimes costs us. That there's going to be moments where we sacrifice. There's going to be moments that our friend wants to do something that maybe we don't want to do, but it's a way that we can care for them in a moment. Maybe they're going through something really hard and they just need someone to be there with them. That even just your time and the way that we listen to each other, that's service. If you have a friend that's walking through a really hard season and you just want to sit with them and listen, that's a way we can serve our friends. You don't have to do anything crazy. It's the little moments of saying, like, I'm going to die to myself right now. Even if I want to be served, I'm going to choose to set that aside so I can be here for my friend. And a beautiful thing happens where when two friends are doing that for each other, it's like a really, really sweet thing. The second thing is this in friendships. So first is seek to serve. Second is to build each other up. Basic, so basic, to build each other up. But I think if we actually did this, our lives would look a lot different and our friendships would look a lot different. If we want to have really meaningful friendships, what are all good relationships built on? Who said, I heard it? Trust, right? That you're not going to have a good relationship with somebody that you don't trust. If somebody breaks my trust, it's going to take a little while to earn that back. That I don't want to actually do life on life with someone I know is going to go talk about me behind my back. For girls, I think this sometimes looks a lot like gossip. And sometimes we think we can trust a friend and then we find out that they were talking about us behind our back and sharing it. And in this space, as we learn to do friendships with each other, I'm just going to say, there is no room for gossip as Christians. That we are called to something higher and we are called to speak life to each other. That if you were to think of God as a loving Father, which He is, and this is what helps me when I'm wanting to gossip sometimes, I look at that person or I think of them and I go, oh my gosh, that's God's child too. He died to save that person too. That wasn't just for me, that was for her. Even if she deserves the gossip, I feel or she did something that really hurt. There's no room for that here. We're people that need to build each other up and speak life into each other. I can remember things that people have said about me all the way from when I was a little kid that still stick with me today. And as followers of Christ who are meant to share the word that Jesus says in John 13 when He's talking to His disciples, He says, the world is going to know me by the way that you love one another. So in our friendships, we are directly relating what it looks like to be loved by God. And we're going to fall short, of course. God knows that. But one really way we can kill our witness to outside people and people that don't know Jesus is by talking poorly about people in this room. That if we want the world to know who Jesus is, it's really important the way that we talk about one another. And for guys, I obviously am not a guy, but I talked to some guys and was like, what do guys need to hear about friendship? And a big one was this, that sometimes guys will make fun of each other, and that's fine. That's totally, there's fun in that of joking, making little jabs. Girls, I think we do this too. But if in sports, the little comments or I think sometimes about our parents, we're oh, you're so weak, you're so little. These comments that in competition, it's funny. But if that's the only things that are being said with our friends, if that's how we talk with our friends and that is the way that we do things, then how can we build trust with someone? How can we build trust to build relationship if we're just constantly tearing each other down? That the words that we speak to each other as guys in this room, you guys are building one another up in Christ. It's hard to be a Christian today. It's hard to choose to follow Jesus in a world that doesn't want us to. So we need the friends in this community to be people that build each other up rather than tearing each other down. There's this quote I want to read to you guys. It's by a guy named Tim Keller. And it says this, "To be loved but not known is comforting, but it's superficial. To be known and not loved is our greatest fear. But to be fully known and to be truly loved is a lot like being loved by God." Now that's something we kind of get to do for each other, you guys. That the more we build trust with each other and we get to know each other, the more that we can love one another. Now on my hard days, if I have friends that I can trust because they've spoken life into me and they've encouraged me, and I know that this is a safe space to share with them, and I can open up about the things I'm struggling with, that they get to know me better, and in knowing me better, they actually get to love me better. But none of that can happen unless we learn to trust each other in friendship, and the way that we build trust is with the words that we say and the actions we carry out. So let's be people that build each other up, that speak life into each other, and that's where friendships can really thrive. And then the last is this, that the way that we grow or we know a marker of a healthy friendship is that we're pushing one another towards growth. Pushing one another towards growth. And I said I wasn't going to use this verse because I feel like every friendship talks about it, but it's for a reason. It's Proverbs 27:17, and it says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one friend sharpens another." It's this concept that iron being sharpened. I don't know much about metal work, whatever it's called. Welding? No. Metal work? I don't know. What is it? Forging? Sounds like a mystical. But as iron sharpens iron, that's not like a pretty process, right? Like that's difficult, that's probably painful. It's chiseling. What'd you say? Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. But this is not a fun process, and I think this is really how friendship is sometimes. But we have lived in a culture that says as soon as things get hard, or as soon as somebody says something to offend you, just walk away from them, cut them out of your life. They're not worth your time anymore. But I think if we actually want to grow in our friendships and have our friendships be something that push us towards Jesus, that conflict is a necessary part of this process. That leaning into the hard moments rather than just walking away, that's what grows us. Being in a friendship that's just like jokes all the time, superficial, that's great, but it's not growing. Those friendships aren't the ones that make me want to be better. The friendships that make me want to look more like Jesus are the ones that are usually the toughest. The ones that maybe I wouldn't choose every day. The ones that we've leaned into these hard conversations and my pride is exposed. Or there's things about me, my insecurity that comes out and I just don't want to confront it. So the easier thing to do is to walk away. But what if friendship could actually be something that refines us? Friendship could actually be something that makes us look more like Jesus. I think the lie we believe with the word conflict, we believe that conflict equals bad. That conflict is a very negative thing. That means you're going to lose a friend. But something that really changed my life is just the way that I have reframed thinking about conflict. That instead of viewing as conflict as bad, conflict produces closeness if it's done well and with care. Conflict can be something that doesn't drive two people away from each other, but actually brings them closer. But it does require both people leaning into those moments. And in our friendships, being able to talk about things that are hard, about things that hurt your feelings, about disappointment that you had. That friendship is a space for us to talk about those things, and in that process, we're learning to look more like Jesus. We're growing together. That this is the beauty of friendship. Friendship should produce growth. And if your friendships aren't, maybe look and take a little inventory of why not. Is it because there's a hard conversation that you're scared to have? If you're like me, sometimes I share this with the girls, but when I'm angry, it doesn't come out as anger, it comes out as secret bitterness in my heart. And that's what drives me away from my friends. It's usually not some big explosion of like yelling at each other that happens, but it's a slow distancing because they did something that hurt me, but rather than mend the relationship and engage in a hard conversation, I'd rather just isolate myself. That's the most dangerous thing we can do, is just move towards isolation when we really should be leaning in and having the conversation with a friend. And more often than not, after those conversations, you feel so much closer to your friend than before. That if you want to be a friend that is really loving, you'll be able to speak truth to your friends with love. That conflict doesn't mean you're just coming at them and telling them what they did wrong, but you're also willing to admit the thing that you did that was wrong, where you can ask for forgiveness, where you're quick to forgive the other person. This is how we do friendships God's way, you guys. He's the one that created us, so he knows how we do relationship best. So let's go to his word to figure out, God, how do we do relationship? And friendship is like the biggest, broadest topic ever. So I only was able to touch on 3 things today, but I encourage you, if you are dealing with conflict with a friend and the situation feels really, really messy, bring an older adult mentor figure into it and ask them to help you. The worst thing we can do is just keep it to ourselves and create little pockets of gossip around. Go to an adult, bring them in. There's wisdom around you that you have full access to, so use it. Use the Bible. That there's so many verses of how to love one another. God just doesn't just tell us like do this and then not give us the how behind it. He tells us how to do it. But if we want to have good, healthy friendships, it starts with knowing who our friend in Jesus is first. And then once we're filled by him, we can go love those around us. So as we go into this week, I want to leave you with this little, it's like a statistic that you become the average of the 5 people around you. You become the average of the 5 people around you. So today, or this week, think about who those people are for you. Think about who those 5 are. And if you were the average of those 5 people, is that something that you'd be happy with? Keeping in mind that who your friends are now is going to determine the type of parent you're going to be, where your mental health could be. It has more implications than just the here and now. So choose those people wisely. You have the power to choose who those people are, and this room is a great place to find those people. And just like Jesus' disciples, they were all different. They had nothing in common other than the fact that they wanted to give their life fully to Jesus. That's what they had in common. So you can find that in this space too. But take inventory of who those 5 people are, and if that's something that you're happy with. And if it's not, talk to a life group leader about it. Ask them for help. Pray about it. Say, God, what do I do with these 5 people that I feel like I'm doing life closely with, but I don't want to become like the average of who they are. Would this kind of just be a wake-up call for us that you get to have some control in this aspect of your life? You get to choose who your friends are, and you get to choose the type of friend that you are. So would we be people that build each other up, that speak life, that listen, that serve one another, and that push each other towards growth?